This is Breaking Down Security, and I am Brian Brake. Welcome back, listener. This is Brian, again, without Mr. Betcher. A lot of our interviews recently have been without Mr. Betcher, but I assure you that he's okay with it, and he'll want to listen to this one because this one is affecting him as much as it is affecting me. This week, I am interviewing people who have been elected to the ISC2 board. We have one today, and I'm hoping to get another one this week and kind of put these interviews together. So I'd like to welcome Mr. Wim Remes to the show.
Thanks for having me.
I said that right? It's
Remes. Everybody says it differently, but I don't really care about it. So
Remes. Okay, Remes.
Yeah.
I will remember that. If you've ever listened to the podcast, you know that I have a penchant for mispronouncing names. So thank you, Wim, to come on the show. I appreciate you coming on. I have a CISSP. Mr. Betcher, my co-host, has a CISSP. We've both had them. He's had his a little less time than I have. I've had mine since about 2010. First, maybe people who don't necessarily know who you are, maybe you could explain who you are and what you do, and where you're at in the hierarchy on ISC2.
Okay. So I'm Wim Remes. I live and work in Belgium. I work for a company called Rapid7 that most people know.
Yep.
Mostly through Metasploit or Nexpose. So that's my day job. Other than that, I've been involved in quite a lot of community efforts. I work together with Dave Kennedy on the PTS, the Pentest Execution Standard, and I also help run the Brucon conference in Belgium that you might have heard from. As far as ISC2 goes, I remember back in 2011, there were a lot of people that were complaining about ISC2 and the certifications. And that's when I basically decided either I drop my certificate and I do nothing, or I try to be an active member and I try to get on the board. So I ran a petition. I got elected. I sat on the board from 2011 until the end of 2014. And then at the end of 2014, unfortunately, I was not re-elected. Then they asked me through the board to volunteer again as a candidate. So I ran a campaign that was, I think, quite visible on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and apparently I got enough votes to be on the board again.
Awesome.
As far as the hierarchy goes, that's actually I try to make something very complex as simple as possible because, well, we could talk about this for like 45 or 60 minutes. ISC2 is a non-profit organization. That doesn't mean it's a charitable organization. 501c6 in the US, which means a membership organization, right? Just when you get your CISSP, you become a member. So they have a management team. They have about, I think right now, 100 staff that are distributed across the globe. So there is a main office in Tampa. There is an office in the UK, in London. There is one in Hong Kong, and there is representation in Brazil as well since the beginning of this year, I think. So the board itself does not manage the organization. So when what the board does is it governs the organization and it sets the strategy for the next 3 to 5 years. So it's not that we create the exams, we create the content. As the board really governs the organization. And in that sense, I feel that a board member basically represents the membership on the board to make sure that the organization goes in the direction that the members need it to be within the next 3-5 years.
Very cool. Very cool. Yes, the current tentative hope is to have Mr. Kennedy on as well in the next few days. He's given me a verbal yes, so I'm hoping that he'll have us on. So you said you were compelled to run for election the first time. What was the compelling reasons for you to do so? Was it the industry itself, or did you just see that the management style was not indicative of what you'd like to see? Where were you looking at?
I think like many members, I was paying $85 a year for a certification that I didn't see a lot of value coming from. And then we also had the problems where there were a lot of certification mills that were basically churning out certified people that didn't really represent the security professionals you understand it, right? So I didn't see the value. I was very close to dropping my certification, but then I basically thought if I don't try and contribute and make a change to it, then I don't have the right to criticize it. So sure. I tried to actually get on the board and help them make it take it into the direction that the community wants.
That's awesome. I too have felt that way. I know I'd been following Mr. Jack Daniels for not to name drop, but he's a reluctant CISSP as well, and he had mentioned several times on Twitter that he was unhappy with the organizing body as it was. So it's good to see people of yours and Dave's and others calibers on the board. So I know some of the changes that have come down recently. I know that they probably weren't under your administration. Was modification of the 10 domains down to 8.
Yes.
And from what I understood, there's been a revamping of the test. So during your first term, what was some of the things that you did to help, move the CISSP and the other certifications to a higher standard, if you will?
Yeah. So I don't take a lot of credit for my board work myself, because it's in the end it's 13 people that are on the board, and you need at least a majority of people voting for the motions that need to pass, right? So it's really a team effort, and the people I was able to work with on the board were all top class people. What we definitely achieved during the time that I was on the board. We got a lot of new style board members on the board. If you look, for instance, at people like Dave Lewis, who served on the board for the past 3 years, with Jennifer Manella. We have Alison Miller as well.
Yep.
But we also had people like Dan Hauser that you might be familiar with. Then Howard Schmidt is also a board member of IC2. Nice. Those are people that really contribute to the whole board, right? And it's very important that you have different types of people from whether those are pen testers or security managers or people like Howard, who are more on the government level and basically are idols of mine.
Oh yeah.
For instance, we also had a very smart Japanese professor who also got reelected, and all those different viewpoints matter. What we definitely did was when I joined the board, I made I think a commitment to the community to bring IC2 closer to the community. So I worked with a lot of the management team to get them in touch with non-profit conferences, like for instance BSides, to help them automatically submit CPEs for people that attend BSides events. So that happened. IC2 management actually attended one of the BSides Las Vegas events as well. So in that sense, they already became closer to the community. Other than that, I think it was in 2014. So every certification gets reviewed every 3 years. It's not constantly reviewed, but every 3 years there's a big workshop with people from different parts of our field that come together, look at the content, and see what needs to be reorganized. Something that I believe the younger board members or the newer board members contributed to is get the organization in touch with a newer type of security professionals that also got onto that workshop and basically added, I believe, around 40% more technical content that is focused on penetration testing, threat modeling, application security, and then also review the domains.
Awesome.
So you already mentioned those 8 domains instead of 10. One of the things that has changed, for instance, is that cryptography is no longer a top-level domain, which might surprise a lot of people because cryptography is important, right? But what they basically did is they took cryptography and they distributed across different domains, because cryptography plays a role in different domains.
Sure.
So that content got redistributed, updated, and then I think one of the main things about the 10 domains is that it's very easy to say, like, I'm an expert in these 10 domains, right? But not every CISSP is a crypto expert.
Exactly.
And that's what those 10 domains said.
Yeah.
Right? Right now, you know about crypto if you're a CISSP, but you're not an expert in that domain. So I think the CISSP probably, I don't know if it's the right way to say it, is a little bit more honest.
No, I understand. Yeah, I mean, unless you're actually creating algos and testing crypto on a regular basis, you really can't call yourself a cryptography expert.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, when I did my body of work for my first for getting my CISSP, I was doing physical security, because when I was in the Navy, I was doing security rounds, basically like a glorified security guard. Telecommunications, which I'm pretty sure everybody counts as one of their domains. Mm-hmm. And one of the other ones was I was doing application security stuff as well, so with vulnerability management and those. So physical security probably wasn't much of a stretch, because I was actually checking doors and making sure that the locks were done and everything. But it was a glorified security guard, which So
other things that I've done.
Yeah.
We only talked about the certification now, but like I said, there is a lot of things that I can talk about when it comes to IC2. One of the major things I think I kicked off when I became chair in 2014 was the start for the recruitment of a new executive director. Was an important step. Hort Tipton was an excellent executive director, and if you look at what he achieved for the organization, he did really good work and grew it from, I think, around 50,000 members to 100,000 members in the time that he was with IC2. But he also got older, and we had to start thinking about succession. So we did a very rigorous process with, I think, around 7-8 candidates with different backgrounds. And in the end, David Shearer, who also happened to be the COO at that time, became the executive director on January 1st, 2014. So we basically worked with the board under my direction as the chair to hire a new executive director. And then we also kicked off a review of the bylaws. So I'm not sure if you're aware about the corporate bylaws of IC2, but the last time they were updated was in 2004. Mm-hmm. So this is something that happens. That doesn't happen a lot in an organization. Review and re-edit the bylaws. So that was a very cumbersome task. One of the main things that we wanted to look at was the term limits of board members. We had board members that were on the board for more than 10 years, which obviously gives you a lot of experience. But if you have board members that keep coming back in an organization, you also don't get different views. So when I rolled off at the end of 2014, the bylaws were not voted in yet. They were not ready. But the board in 2015 worked hard to get the new bylaws ready, and they were voted on I believe in October, and they were ratified. So now instead of so in the previous bylaws, it said that you could do 2 terms, then roll off 1 year and do 2 more terms, and a roll off a year, and basically continue for the rest of your life doing that.
Yeah.
Now under the new bylaws, you can do 6 years, so 2 terms, and then you have to roll off for 4 years. And it sounds like that is very easy for a board, but one of the things that I think the board in 2016 needs to do, if it's not ready for that yet, is that it needs to document everything that it does, and needs to be able to basically within 6 years transfer the responsibilities and everything that comes with the board to a completely new team. Because that's what's going to happen. You force yourself to document, to keep history, and to be transparent.
Yeah, it's nice. Yeah, and like you said, modifying the bylaws and making sure they were updated. You're doing process improvement. You're making sure that the board doesn't stagnate by being in there for
Mhm.
too long. Which is always good. Um, so and also you guys have been busy adding new certifications. I mean, you added your cybersecurity forensics professional. There's the one for the
Yeah.
healthcare folks, and there's also I guess the newest one is the cloud security professional. So you guys are trying to put a technical bent on certifications, whereas I'd always learned, and I mentioned this before we started recording, that when I went to quote unquote a boot camp 6 years ago, I spent an entire week learning about CISSP. I was told that it was a management certification. Is that something you think is still a valid point? Is it a management certification, or are you guys doing what you can to try to make it like a decathlete, like where you're a good all round kind of person?
No, I think since the CISSP started to exist, our profession has evolved quite a bit. Where we were mainly risk managers and I would say paper pushers in the past. It's become much more technical, and you see a lot of different security professionals, whether they are IDs jockeys, reverse engineers, malware analysts, penetration testers, CISOs. Everybody's a security professional, right? So in that sense, what I truly believe that the CISSP is a basic cert that generates what I would call a lingua franca, like a general language between security professionals.
Nice.
And if I have this conversation with Americans, it's not always very obvious, but it's very helpful if you work in an international context and you work with somebody from Hong Kong, from France, and from Ghana, that they speak the same language.
Yes.
And that is what I truly believe that that the CISSP does.
Very nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Yeah. So I mean, obviously, you said it's kind of the base language. So there are concentrations you can do, like ISSAP, ISSEP, and MP, which allows you to further specify what type of CISSP you are, which is very important. So you don't. This is all volunteer, right? I mean, you don't.
Yeah.
You're not. This is not a permanent position for you. Every once in a while, you get called to come and come bring the board together and decide on various things.
Yeah, the board comes together 4 times a year, so there are 4 board meetings. They can be anywhere in the world, but basically management decides where the board meetings are. That's something different from the past as well, where the board basically decided themselves where they wanted to go. Now we really want management to tell us where they want us. If there is, for instance, I think there is going to be a board meeting around RSA Asia, which is in Singapore. But that's a management decision because there are a lot of our members there, and it makes sense for the board to be present there. Instead of going to, we could just as well, if we could decide ourselves, we could decide amongst ourselves to go to some exotic island and drink cocktails and talk about security. But we go where the business needs us to go.
That's cool. So yeah, not everywhere is in Hawaii. Not every year's you have board meetings in Hawaii or anything like
that. No, I remember it was basically my last board meeting was in Hawaii, but I didn't know a lot about the security community in Hawaii, but there's a lot of DoD in Hawaii, and there's actually a high concentration of security professionals there as well. So even from a business sense, that visit did make sense.
Yeah. So a question I had, because when I got mine, the option was that it was a government organization. It was a contractor, and the U.S. government decided that for anybody touching government computers, you had to be either 8570.1, I think, which was a DoD Information Assurance Manager cert, or get a CISSP. Do you think that the fact that we were required to get a CISSP, and a lot of people, and I know people I worked with in San Diego who got their CISSP had no reason to even be getting it. Do you think that watered down the CISSP before you guys made your changes? And that's and the reason you made your changes was because it kind of got watered down by people who didn't need it in the first place?
So that's a very interesting and again a very complex conversation as well.
Yeah, sure.
You were not required to get a CISSP or a CISSP for 8570.
No,
8570 actually requires you to get a certification that is ANSI 17024 accredited, and ANSI 17024 is a standard to maintain and manage professional certifications. So what the government basically said was, if you get a certification or the certifications that we want you to have need to be accredited by ANSI, right? But the problem at the time was that the CISSP was the only ANSI certified security certification that existed.
Okay. Because I understood it to be like there was an 8570 certification that you could get, or you could get the CISSP. So I didn't know that CISSP meant you were 8570 certified.
It may be that there's an 8570 separate certification as well, but 8570 is basically a rule set that specifies what a security professional within basically delivering services to the Department of Defense or the U.S. government needs to have to be able to perform those tasks, right?
Yeah.
And one of them was having a certification that is ANSI 17024 accredited. Right now, in the past few years, I think, and you probably heard about it as well, the CEH has become ANSI certified as well.
Okay.
And one or more of the SANS certificates are ANSI 17024 accredited as well, which means, for instance, one of the things that people really complain about is the CPEs. The CPEs are a requirement for ANSI 17024 accreditation. So you need to have such a system that that allows you to track that somebody is maintaining their knowledge.
Yeah.
So the people that have a CEH or one of the SANS certificates will need to get CPEs, or I think SANS calls it ECEs or something.
Yeah.
But it's the same system. So there was never a push, or there's never been a lobby from IC2 to push the CISSP into DoD. It was just that the CISSP or the CISSP was the only ANSI accredited certification that was available.
Oh, okay. Well, that makes perfect sense.
It actually costs a lot of effort and money to maintain ANSI accreditation.
Okay. All right. Well, that makes more sense now. So yeah, I just knew that it would open doors for me because I didn't know what the 8570. It sounded like it was just a certificate saying, "Oh, you've passed a class." So I had always thought that CISSP was like the end all be all kind of security cert at the time. So even before I'd been sent to the boot camp, I was trying to, I had the Sean Harris fine lady. She, did her all-in-one courses. So I was trying to do all of her CBT stuff and trying to get that. And it was, when I got it, I was like, man, I'm going to be, without it, I wouldn't have gotten where I am today, which is fantastic.
And you still remember when you walked out of that room where you did your exam and you weren't sure that you actually passed it?
Oh God, I knew I failed it. I don't even know what the score was because at the time I was still doing it on the old Scantron sheets, and I guess now they're doing it computerized, so immediately, kind of like the SANS courses. But yeah, it was a 4-hour test, and I think I took 2 hours, and I was the second person done, and I was like, oh man, I know I did not pass this thing at all. And I had like a 3-hour drive back to Austin because I was living in Austin at the time. I took it in Dallas, so it was a pain in the butt. But so let me ask you a question about the CPEs. There seems to be a lot of people out there who got their CISSP and they're like, oh my God, I don't know where to get CPEs at, and, old timer like myself who's been doing it for a few years. I do it with podcasts. I don't count my podcast CPEs here because I understand that me, preparing for this, as it were, could technically be counted as CPEs, but I don't count them. I listen to other podcasts like Defensive Security and those. Is there for those people who are listening on the podcast? The other thing is it's difficult to record them. For me, at least, I listen to a half-hour podcast. I got to log into a website, go through the form, put in 0.5 or whatever for CPE, and then save. Are you guys looking at maybe an application or something on a mobile device or something that will allow you to more easily input your CPEs later on?
I think actually that's a good idea, and it should be something that should be made available to the members, something that allows you to maintain your certification in a much easier way.
Yeah.
Right now there is maybe management won't like me, but the website and the system is a little bit antiquated. So I definitely think it's a good idea, and I will probably talk about that with management when I meet them at the first board meeting in January already.
Oh, right on. Okay. Well, I mean, I was just suggesting, I didn't, because, I end up listening to like 10 episodes of Risky Business, and then I record how many per 10. I don't know. That's probably not the way you're supposed to do it, but I just find it's easier for me to put down, I listen to Risky Business episodes, 400 through 410, and it's 12 hours of podcast or something instead of half an hour here and there.
But what you can also do, just take screenshots of the podcast that you've listened to, right? And then just at the end of the year, or when you need to submit your CPEs, you just submit them in bulk.
Nice.
You said listening to podcasts, like 120 CPEs.
Yeah.
And it will probably get audited, but when you then submit those screenshots to the audit, then you will be fine.
Yeah. I've been audited a few times, but I listen to enough podcasts and stuff where it's like, do I really care about getting audited for that, 5 or 6 hours or whatever, And I'm drowning in them. I did DerbyCon this year, so that was like 30 some hours of CPEs, and when I did my GWAP last year, which I passed, which was cool. That was a whole week of for SANS AppSec, and so I mean, I think.
You would be surprised how many of our colleagues in the industry are not able to go to conferences.
No, I totally understand. I mean, my company did not pay for me to go to DerbyCon. I paid for that on my own dime. That's why I was doing podcasts, because it was like, I can't go to Shmoo. I can't go to, B-side, I can go to B-side Seattle in February, but I mean, I can't go to RSA. I can't go to Black Hat. I can't go to DEF CON. And, there's a lot of people out there. I actually met somebody the other day at a gathering I do here in Seattle called CISSP East. He had not heard of DerbyCon. And, a lot of these people are in the trenches. Their heads are down. They don't, they may have a CISSP, but they don't know where to get those things. So I don't know if that's something like, the ISC could, advertise these things on their site about, hey, here's a good place to get them. Or do you guys do newsletters where you can say, hey, here's a good place to get those?
Oh, I believe there are monthly, or at least I will call them periodic, because I don't know how regular they are. But there are events that IC Square organizes that are free to attend in different cities in the US and across the globe, which they call their secure events.
Okay.
There's mostly 1 or 2 day events in different cities. They just plan them ahead for the year. They are free to attend. They get you CPEs. There are regular webcasts as well that are organized by IC Square, but often they are presented by third-party experts. So those are 1 hour 1 hour webcasts as well that you can attend. And then, for instance, and I'm not advertising Rapid7 at all, but a lot of companies give product or services webcasts as well. And if you can prove attendance of those count towards CPEs as well.
Okay. Do you ever worry about vendor creep like that with the third party stuff? Or like, I mean, obviously the ones that are vendor oriented, are going to be, hey, here's a product, here's how it will help your organization. But I mean, do you ever worry about vendor creep on those?
I would worry about that if I didn't know that the team that manages and organizes those webcasts really looks at providing quality content rather than getting as many webcasts as possible from vendors. So
Yeah.
they're really conscious about what they want to deliver to the members.
Yeah, vendor neutrality is good. I mean, if you're going to talk about vulnerability management, it's cool if you worked for a company that does a vulnerability scanner. And not, full disclosure, our company does use an expose. But I mean, you don't want to come on and talk about how your scanner is the best. You just want to talk about vulnerability management as a whole, which was great. So yeah, I was looking at the secure stuff for ISC2. It looks like Secure London starts tomorrow, as a matter of fact, and so does Dallas. And then, hey, there's a Secure Seattle in March, so that's cool. I have to check that out.
Yep, you have to.
Very awesome. Yeah, I definitely. I keep complaining that there's not enough security conferences up here in the Seattle or Pacific Northwest, but apparently I just haven't looked hard enough. So,
you guys have HushCon. You obviously have Blue Hat as well.
Yeah.
Then there is that TourCon?
TourCon, yes, I think is up here. I know
secure event. So you already have 4, and there's probably you do the CSEC.
I do CSEC East. There is another CSEC organization. We basically just get together and have dinner. So I don't really call it having talks and stuff, but it's just a nice networking event. There's Source Seattle.
Source Seattle as well. I forgot about that. Source is an awesome conference.
Yep.
But if you would do like a 1-hour talk at one of your CSIC events, that would get members CPEs as well.
Oh, well, there you go. Maybe I'll get off the pot there and start lightning talks or something, perhaps, maybe. So wow. Okay. I was way over my time. I didn't actually expect to get this much time. So
I have so much more to tell.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, do you have any parting thoughts? I mean, I know that you're doing this because you're trying to turn the organization around, and it's awesome. Again, full disclosure, I did vote for you, and I voted for the other gentleman that we're trying to get on. So, because you're people in the industry, your heads are down, you're very visible. So, what are you guys planning on doing for the future? I mean, do you have anything that you're working on right now, initiatives that you and the board are looking to get through in the next 3 years?
So I'll first need to get up to speed with what the board has done in the past year. But because even though I was on the board previously and I know all board members, I had no other communication channels than the normal members had. Which I think is good, because there's been a lot of criticism that there's inbreeding in the board and it's like a closed circle. Even I was not in that circle in the year that I was off. So, which I think is very good to know from a board that they are strict in how they work. What I actually wanted to do if I got reelected last year, and I started working on it a little bit back then, was to look at a different type of certifications. I think what we really need in the immediate future when we talk, and you probably noticed that I try to avoid as many buzzwords as I could.
Yes.
But one of the buzzwords that I will use on this podcast is the Internet of Things. We see devices, and your kids probably carry them. You use them for to track your heartbeat, for to follow your health. There you go. You maybe have a Nest in your house as well. You might get a pacemaker in a few years too. if you stay in
what's
this
that
space,
all about?
it's gonna help.
Wow. Okay.
So what I think we need is a group of certifications. I don't think it should be a single certification that basically identifies or certifies security engineers, right? And I know there is an engineering concentration on the CISSP, but this, in my vision, would be a group of certifications that basically allows us to partially train, but mainly identify people that build security. Today, you cannot just do software security anymore. You cannot do just platform security anymore. If you develop a product, you have to have knowledge about the network, the hardware, the platform, the application, and then all the rest that ties them together. If you do encryption in a database, you rely on the TPM that is in the hardware, right? So I think we should move. There's not enough security builders right now. We've seen quite some people, and then I talk about people like Dino Daizovi and others move from a really breaking profession to a building profession, right? And I think we need to grow the next generation of security builders. Because that's what I think. But I basically think the world needs.
Yeah. Are you looking at doing like concentrations on that as well for like internet connected devices? Doing a concentration for, say, appliances like switches, routers, or are you just like across the board kind of thing?
Right now I think about 5 different certifications that you could get separately. Sure. But if you get all of the 5 together, you basically have that security engineering certification.
Okay.
The goal should not be to get 100,000 of them. There's probably going to be very few. But I think the trend has been set with for instance, the CCFP, the forensic certification.
Oh yeah.
Very few people noticed, but that was rolled out regionally. So there was first a CCFP for the US, then because there's a high concentration of security professionals in South Korea, there was an CCFP for South Korea. And then it was rolled out for, I believe, Europe as well. And I don't know if Australia is already rolled out, but that is regionally focused. The requirements for experience are much higher as well. And I think we need to move to that types of certifications more. So there's going to be less certified people, but the quality should be much higher.
Awesome. Sorry, I just had another thought, and I'll probably move this into the podcast somewhere. So you are a certifying body. You have certifications. How do you stay competitive against the other organizations that are not like ISC2? I specifically, I'm going to mention SANS. But there's also other companies out there coming up that are giving out certifications like SecurityTube. Vivek Ramachandran out there. Yeah. He's got a basically an online type of course, and he does certifications himself. How do you plan on keeping ISC2 competitive against those organizations? As a board, I mean, not just you specifically.
So one of the key things that maybe changed when I got on the board, but that was already in the works before I joined the board, was where ISC2 was focused on selling certificates up to 2012. The second board meeting in 2012, we changed the mission of the organization to be focused on the membership. ISC2 is the only certifying security organization in the world that has more than 100,000 members. And I think that's a very important distinction to make. We don't just certify people. And I think I know Vivek personally. He trained at Brookon several times, and he's one of the most dedicated training professionals that I know.
Oh, he's fantastic. Yes.
And I've actually done 2 of his courses myself. So I think recognizing those efforts and recognizing that we are not the only tower of knowledge in the Middle Earth that info security is very important. So things like what the guys at Offensive Security do,
exactly.
What the people at SANS do, what the people at EC Council do. I think it all contributes to making better security professionals, and everybody knows we have too few of them. What I think where ISC2 can make the difference is by making their membership collaborate more. Right now, you are a member, but you probably meet members when you go to a conference, but you don't identify them as members. I believe there is not enough information sharing and knowledge sharing between the membership.
Okay.
And the value you will get from your certification doesn't come from ISC2 and doesn't come from the staff members that are running the organization. That value should come from the members themselves.
Nice.
And ISC2 should provide a platform that enables the members to work together.
Okay. So so will part of you mentioned website design, will that be incorporating some kind of community kind of thing where people can collaborate that way? Or are you looking at, you're already doing the secure events, but are you looking to expand the secure events maybe to, maybe having a day or two where it's just ISC squared members, or are you guys looking to build out the ISC membership groups? I know that Austin has an ISC squared group.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if there's one up here in the Seattle area. I haven't actually found one. I know ISSA and ISAC is up here, which I'm a member of both of those. But
Yeah. As far as I understand it, but that's not something I'm aware of that has changed in the past year. But in the mission statement, if you read it carefully, it hints towards a system of certified and non-certified members. So basically, in my vision, I think that's very important. That's something we should work towards.
Mhm.
Is that basically anybody working in security can become an IC Square member and benefit from the knowledge sharing within the membership.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
But then we make the distinction between people that hold an IC Square certification, which are voting members, certified members, and then the non-certified members.
Yeah.
And I think that's a direction we should head to. But the first thing we need to do is, like you say, is create that platform, make sure that the website and everything that's connected to it, with maybe mobile applications and all that comes with it, to actually enable that collaboration and to make the membership understand. One of the problems that I have right now, and I don't know the exact numbers, but we have more than 100,000 members, and less than 10% of those members vote for the board of directors.
Yeah.
That's a matter of engagement.
Sure.
And if members don't engage, then members will not get value out of their certification.
Yeah. No, I agree.
I honestly, I'd rather have 3,000 members that are engaged than 150, of which 60% are not engaged.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of people are just, I hate to use the term checking a box, but a lot of jobs are like, oh yeah, you got to have a CISSP. Okay, so I got my CISSP, and then they don't do anything with it when they're done.
Exactly.
I see that a lot on Twitter. It's like, oh, you don't do anything once you got your CISSP, or you're not really. So that's another reason why I started my podcast, was because I wanted to be a CISSP that was actually trying to give back to the community. I'm not able to serve on a board like y'all are. Well, I guess I could. I mean, anybody can run for the board, right?
Anybody can run for the board. It's not for the faint of heart.
I'd imagine there's some politics. So if you're not a fan of politics, then you won't.
So that's one part. But you also have to imagine you have a day job, right?
Sure.
I once did the calculation, and when I was chairperson of the board, I spent about in pure time 40 days a year.
Oh wow!
Of my personal free time dedicated to the board. That includes the travels to the board meetings, but also separate meetings, committee meetings, meetings with general counsel, that kind of stuff.
Okay.
That cost me 40 days of free time. So before you decide to go on the board, make sure that you know that that's a serious investment as well.
Yeah.
But just as a member, imagine an organization that has 100,000 members, and every single one of those 100,000 members writes a 2-pager about a project that they did at work, or something they've been thinking about, or something that has failed, where they have learned from. You get a library with 200,000 pages that is accessible to the membership.
Okay. Yeah, that's a lot of time.
Well, no, that's not a lot of time for every individual member, but there's a lot of knowledge that is available to the whole membership.
That's true. All right. Well, I've taken up more than your time than I actually expected. I didn't. I was expecting like 20 or 30 minutes. Like most interviews, we only expect to get 20 or 30 minutes, and here we're pushing about 40 now. So, but I'm
talk about.
No, that's cool. I'm glad I was able to have you on. I've always wanted to meet you, whether it be in real life or otherwise. So before we go, how would people get a hold of you if maybe they wanted to do some feedback or something on ISC Squared? Is there an official channel for you to do that, or do you just want people to hit you up on Twitter?
Twitter is fine. So my Twitter is just my first name and last name.
Mm-hmm.
And then once I'm back on the board January 1st, my email address will probably be wremes@icsquare.org.
Okay.
And people can send me any questions there.
Okay, cool. You are on the talking circuit. Are you going to be giving any talks anywhere recently? I think I saw you mentioned you were going to be in the States next week.
Next week I'm in the States for work, so
Okay.
I'll be at a client in the States. But I don't think I'm gonna have the time to do any conferences next year. I'll maybe try to do Black Hat DEF CON, but that depends on a lot of planning. So.
All right. Well, if you ever find yourself up here in Seattle, lunch is on me, and first adult beverage if that's something you want to
do. If I don't bill like the last time.
Yeah, exactly. So it was great talking to you, sir. Wim, you're always welcome to come back if we ever, if you ever want to come and talk about your side projects you're working on. Feel free to hit us up. We'd love to have you back on.
I will definitely do that.
Right on.
Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks, sir. That was it for part one of our interviews with ISC board members. Have a great week, and we will talk to you soon.